the very general idea of what tariffs are, what Donald Trump's tariffs look like. Let's talk expected outcomes, analyst opinions, and how this is going to impact Israel. So first of all, do you have any immediate data to tell us about what happened immediately after Donald Trump's announcement?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like we really, with something as complex as this and as unpredictable as this, like we're really just kind of taking it day by day to see what's happened.
Yeah.
So since the announcement, U.S. stocks have jumped off a cliff. $5 trillion. I'm like checking my numbers as I tell you, but $5 trillion in stock market value were wiped out for S&P 500 companies, which I think is a new record since Corona. The Dow Jones, S&P, and NASDAQ all had like their largest 2-day decline since coronavirus. This is kind of older data. We're looking at like Friday-ish numbers.
Right, because the announcement was Wednesday.
Yeah. Not ideal. Like, and global stocks have also really been impacted. Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, a bunch of major indices opened down this morning.
Really?
Yeah, stocks are all just like diving into the ground.
Is that going to, or is that expected to stabilize at any point? Or even like plateau?
No, like along with the stocks kind of diving, uncertainty has skyrocketed. So we're not really sure what's going to happen, and it's really all depending on what's going to happen next. Now, the market adjusts, right? Stock market adjusts for the next situation and what's going to happen. It has its like own limited ability to kind of readjust, and that's why we're seeing such significant changes. Like we came back from Corona, we came back from 2008.
Right.
I think the immediate concern is definitely for kind of jobs, right? Like we're already hearing about layoffs in U.S. companies, jobs and retirement funds, people who are already living off interest on their investments as part of their retirement plans.
These are all kind of things that kind of come hand in hand with the idea of a recession. These are all kind of included within that.
So you're bringing up a really, really important point. Economists, analysts are all really concerned about one of the results of these new set of tariffs being a recession and increased inflation. Absolutely. Kind of decreased growth. We're definitely looking at a recession risk in the U.S., which there's a funny expression I read in one of the articles I was reading over the past few days about this. I think it goes, when the U.S. economy sneezes, the world catches a cold. But then analysts are saying that this isn't a sneeze. This is the U.S. cutting off its arm.
Oh my God.
So I think that's a really important thing to know, especially here in Israel. We're discussing kind of the Israel impact.
Right, yeah.
Super important to know that so Netanyahu is actually going to be one of the first global leaders probably to sit with Trump and meet with him in person about this after Trump on the phone.
To try and talk him off the ledge, in essence.
It's kind of unclear what he's going to try to do because, right, he kind of brought it up in a phone call that they had,
Right.
and Trump said, let's talk in person, and that rolled into a visit that's going to take place tomorrow, I believe, on Monday.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Even if Netanyahu convinces Trump to cancel tariffs on Israel, that doesn't mean that we're in the clear.
Right. So can you explain, like, let's say, best case scenario, Israel's taken off the tariff list, but all the other countries kind of stay where they were set to stand, which for anybody who doesn't know, it's a 10% base tariff, and Israel's going to see 17% as of yet.
Numerous countries, much higher tariffs than 10%.
Yeah.
So if prices in the U.S. increase, if the U.S. goes into recession, Israel's going to feel that painfully, regardless of whether we're paying tariffs or regardless of whether there are tariffs on Israeli goods. U.S. is Israel's most important, significant trade partner, and so we're absolutely going to be feeling what the U.S. is feeling in the coming days, months, years. Hard to say. So certainly, regardless of the 17% tariff on goods, which we think that there are exemptions for like really significant Israeli exports to the U.S. So kind of, I think that the tariffs on Israeli goods is actually like more of a diplomatic story, kind of less of the economic story.
Right, because the majority of Israel's exports to the U.S. are services, which aren't going to be affected by the tariffs.
Exactly. And in addition to that, there are also exemptions on all kinds of other major exports, semiconductors, pharma. But the big story here, I think, is recession, is inflation. Let's not forget Israel's economy is coming into this in a much weaker position than it went to, say, the coronavirus. We're coming in after 18 months of war.
Yeah.
renewed fighting in Gaza, renewed digital reform concerns, a budget that is
And this is after also our credit ratings were kind of
lowered
slashed and lowered multiple
times.
times.
I think by Moody's to its lowest ever rating. We're
Yeah.
coming into this a little bit battered, and it looks like we might be about to enter a storm.
Is there any kind of, I mean, I'm trying to find the positive, I guess, right? Because everybody's outlook is kind of bleak on how these tariffs are going to impact Israel and the world economy in general. Is there any kind of light at the end of the tunnel?
It's really too soon to say. It's really hard to say. There are also a ton of theories out there of like what's actually happening. Some people are saying that Donald Trump is playing, and I quote, 3D chess.
Oh,
and
that
doing
he's
a
like,
move
he's pulling a
to
bluff.
push cash into. There's just kind of two theories. One theory is that he's bluffing to enter a negotiation from a stronger stance. I think that can also have really, really detrimental and dangerous impacts because financial markets really run on expectations. If suddenly we don't know what to expect, if there's a ton of uncertainty, that can be really poisonous.
And you don't want to be the world leader who cried wolf.
Sure. And in addition to that, there are also theories that this is a purposeful move meant to tank stocks, meant to push cash into treasuries to bring a U.S. Fed rate cut. I saw one Israeli economist who I like his stuff on Twitter, and it was a presser of mine, Itamar Kaspi, say that that's essentially the same as seeing that your car is dirty, setting it on fire, and being happy when the firefighters come to spray water and put the fire out, but also wash your car in the process.
These metaphors are extremely depressing.
It's basically, I would recommend that everyone, even if you don't normally read economic financial news, read some economic and financial news today because it is wild. It is dramatic. It is definitely frightening, but definitely important to kind of stay apprised of.
Right, you were saying that like a very significant portion of, for example, the U.S. public has their investments in the stock exchange right now, and that's going to severely impact them. They need to be aware of it, right?
I think it's around 60% of
Wow.
Americans invest in stocks. Like this will impact everyone. There was another thing so basically Donald Trump shared this on Truth Social, shared a video saying he was playing 3D chess. That's where this whole thing came from. And one of the claims in there was that this is kind of a way to take money from the rich because so few Americans own so much of stocks. Stocks affect most of our lives, right? And they also affect companies. So
Right.
The stock market crashing leads to layoffs. It leads to price increases. It leads to all kinds of things that will impact everyone, as well as the fact that so many Americans, so many people around the world are invested in U.S. and in global markets. This is something that everyone's going to feel. This is not some Robin Hood method to take from the rich and give to the poor, in my humble understanding of the situation, and also many economists.
Right. There's a concern that this is like an attempt to reframe it to make it more appealing to.
I don't know what it was, but it did not really make so much sense to me.
I understand. Okay. Well, thank you for explaining the extremely depressing economic standing right now. And
I mean, it's always important to not panic because panic doesn't help anything, even if there's good reason to panic. So let's all just see what happens.
Yeah.
We're in an incredibly volatile time. We're in an incredible time of uncertainty. So let's just
stay informed, be
take a
aware,
deep
be
breath,
ready.
drink a glass of water. Nachman Shai, thank you for that lovely Israeli lesson.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Eve.
Thanks.